Hello, welcome to the Bold Moves podcast. This is episode number 183, and I am the host, Mandy Bryce. Today, I chatted with Phillip Andrew, who is also an LA local now, who is a Emmy-nominated producer and has made tons of incredible bold moves. I really think you're going to like the conversation, so I recommend that you listen all the way through. I know this is a longer one, so I'm going to keep the intro short, but I promise you it's worth it. There's tons of value, and without further ado, here is my chat with Phillip Andrew. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bold Moves podcast. I am with Phillip Andrew today. Welcome to the show, Phillip.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everybody out there in listening land.
It's my pleasure. So, of course, you know that the show is called Bold Moves, and you wouldn't be on here if you hadn't made some. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, your story, and some of the risks you've taken and how they've paid off for you?
Definitely. So, hello, everybody. My name is Phillip Andrew. I am an Emmy-nominated television producer here in Los Angeles. I also do a handful of other random things. I was a DJ when I was 17 years old, and that's kind of been a passion that I've continued on throughout my life. I also do media and life coaching, as well as speaking to high schools and colleges and educating people, everything from talking about, substance abuse issues, which I'm sure we'll dive into that a little bit. That's a big part of my story. And everything through that and, business coaching and integrity scans and all types of other interesting things that I'm into. But I'll dive in and I'll try not to take the entire hour in this first intro, but I will give a little bit of just a little bit of a brief kind of thing of how I got from Metro Detroit, which is where I was born and raised, all the way out to Los Angeles. So born and raised in Metro Detroit, grew up. My mother worked in retail. My father is a retired police chief in the community. So I grew up, and a big part of my story was, as many kids, I hung out with a lot of older kids, and I felt all of the anxieties of, am I cool enough? Am I funny enough? Am I smart enough? Am I interesting enough to be hanging with the cool kids? And that kind of anxiety, I was always the A student. I was the kid who cried when he got his first A minus and my world fell apart when I got that first B, and so I was that kid. I'm sure some of your listeners can relate with that. Total perfectionist, always thought everything that I was doing was so important, especially with my parents, my dad being, police officer. I thought that every little move I made was a bold move, right? I thought every little move I made was a move that everyone was judging me and judging my family by. So there was a lot of anxiety for a little kid, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, because I was hanging out with a lot of these older kids. When they started experimenting at 15, 16, 17 years old with alcohol and, marijuana and different things, I was starting at 10, 11. So I started drinking kind of at a young age. And when that first happened for me, it was this amazing feeling of like, whoa, I just don't care anymore. I don't care about your judgments. I don't care about any of those things.
Sure.
So for me, that was kind of a release. The drinking kind of gave me a little bit of a buffer because I didn't really have the coping skills to really handle the insecurities I was dealing with. When I was 14, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. We had a difficult battle with her for a year. And then a week before my 16th birthday, she actually passed away.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, well, thank you. And so it was a really tough time, obviously, 16-year-old kid, don't have the coping mechanisms. No one ever knows really what to say to someone when they lose a parent, more or less a 16-year-old kid. So, in studying a lot of things that I've gone back and looked at, one of the worst things you can do to kids is make them feel different, especially for something that isn't a great attribute.
Right.
It's okay to tell a kid, hey man, you're a fantastic athlete.
Right.
But to make a kid feel different because, I didn't want to feel like the kid with the dead mom, So for me, it was one of those things where, I was still performing in school. I was still showing out, doing all these things, but I just didn't feel comfortable in who I was. Like this, I kind of talk about like the gap between who I felt I was deep down inside, the kind of sad, broken little kid, who I was on the flip side, where I was showing you who I was, when, still showing up, still doing school well, all these things, that gap between who I was showing you I was and who I really felt just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And as that gap got bigger, I just felt more and more angst and anxiety, and I was really good at hiding it. I was really, as you guys can tell, I like to speak. I don't mind talking. I was really good at talking myself out of things. I was really good on putting on a show. But deep down, I was broken. And so that led to, 18 years old, crashed my car, drinking and driving, got in some trouble. 19 got arrested, 20 got arrested. Still was showing up, doing well in school. I was on the dean's list, so I thought there's no way I have a problem. And so that the problem eventually, kicked off, started, and then continued for a few years. Luckily for me, I got a DUI 11 days before I was getting ready to move to California. So I graduate college. I'm getting ready to move to LA. I got the bags packed. I got a friend ready to go with me. And then boom, 11 days before I go, I got hit for a DUI in the community where my father was a retired police chief, from the only police officer from the newest cop who didn't recognize the last name.
Wow.
And it was like, had it been any other cop, they would have been like, what are you doing, dude? Like, taking me home, yelled at me. I would have got another slap on the wrist, but it was like a moment in life where, where I didn't get what I wanted, but I got what I needed.
Yeah.
And so that was a big part of, that was me up until 22. So I had kind of like experienced a lot of these things. I started getting really into recovery. I was able to, that first year of I had to stay in Michigan, obviously court fees and court costs and being on probation and all those things. And a big part of that was me getting my life together, was me really figuring out, what do I want to do? And then the bold move came of moving to California. Sure. But I tried to give you the short version and I just went right into it. So I was like, whatever, I guess we're rolling with it. So, but I could continue to elaborate on it, but I will let you join the conversation because I can totally monopolize a conversation if given the opportunity. So my apologies for that.
No, you are just fine. And I think that was a great intro for sure. I kind of want to go back to the idea of you starting drinking at 8 or 9. Yeah. Because I feel like that's just something I can't imagine. I can't imagine like the impact of alcohol on a child. And obviously you were in it, so you couldn't necessarily see it from an outsider. But like, can you just give a little more background or?
Yeah, totally. So the drinking kind of started around like 10, 11, 12. Okay. And I don't want to sound crazy and say it was at 8. It was at 10. No, I'm kidding. I waited a little bit.
It was at least in double digits.
Yeah, I got in those. No. And you know what? It was one of those things where I think it started as small stuff, right? Like it started as like, getting your hands on, on a bottle of alcohol that had like a very small leftover, right? Like the amount that an adult would throw away, right? But we'd get hands on it as little kids and think like, and I thought I was cool to, at my 11th birthday, to have like a fifth. And have like the littlest amount and be hiding it in the seat cushion, and my parents would be upstairs and they didn't know. Like, what parent is thinking their kid is drinking at 11 years old? Like, like and I will say, like, my parents were always very supportive, have always been there for me. And so it's not even one of those things where I can look back and be like, oh, they should have known. Like, no, like it was, you'd have a sip and like you would act as if, like, oh my God, I'm hammered or whatever. But I do remember it started kind of going when I would go to like graduation parties for older kids, So it would be like an 18-year-old's graduation party. My friends would be 16 going to the party. They would drag me along at 10, 11, and I'd be at these parties. And people would be drinking, and I wanted to fit in. I wanted to feel like I, was part of that crowd, was cool. And I would drink. And I think, and, I also grew up with an element of, I wasn't really picked on. I was picked on in the way that any kid is kind of picked on, right? Or like, I wasn't picked on like relentlessly like some kids experience, but we all get teased and made fun of. And, for me, it was always like, oh, Phil, your dad's a cop. Everything, like your mom is on the school board, you get good grades, you're a teacher's pet, blah, 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 blah. Oh, you get away with anything. And in that mindset, like, I don't want to be a cop's kid. Like I rebelled against that because it was like, I was growing up in Metro Detroit with a lot of kids that were a lot tougher than I was, a lot of like kind of really hard-nosed kids from hard-nosed, environments. And I wanted to fit in with that. I didn't want to be the kid that was soft or anything. So I wanted to be the tough kid. I really wanted to be that way. And part of that was being able to drink and do these things. And so I think that's kind of where a lot of that early drinking stemmed from, was just wanting to fit in. Now, we did have one instance where, so we had a campground that we would go to during the summertime. And, I would go with my neighbors, and they were all older. And it was, looking back on it, it's like a parent's worst nightmare. Like all these kids from all over Southeast Michigan coming together and having their weekend friends. And then it's like, everyone's like, the parents are doing their campsite with the adults.
Other adults, yeah.
The kids are sneaking off and doing what kids do. And I was just, it was just one of those things where I was just wrapped up at it pretty young. And so it started to mean more to me. It started to, alcohol and drinking meant fitting in. It meant being a part of the crowd, being a part of what I wanted to do, being cool. Mm-hmm. And so that's what it started to represent to me. And I thought that I needed it to be able to fit in with those crowds, fit in with those crowds that I normally wouldn't be able to have access to, the tougher kids, the edgier kids, and so that was kind of how it started. And then obviously, high school came, you're drinking in high school, college comes, and it's like, whoa, that was bad news, because it was like away from the family. Yeah. You really have that opportunity to have a lot of freedom and responsibility. And of course, like I joined a fraternity, as kids with my hairstyles do. And then that, and I think that was another area where it allowed me to be like, oh, well, there's no problem here. Like, this is just what we do.
Because everyone's doing this, yeah.
Exactly. We get drunk, we break things, we start fights, and it seems so normal because you're with other people that are doing it, when the truth is, like, it's not normal. It's not good behavior. It's not smart. Like, it's, I've had friends that have gotten, kind of like stabbed through the neck during bar fights and things like that. And it's like, that's not normal. Like, that's not, just because it happens doesn't, and just because it's happened to other people doesn't mean it's like something that you're like, you should just, oh, that's not a big deal. Like, that's a big deal. Like, you shouldn't be, like, that's a serious deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm still curious. Like, I guess I had what seems like when I talk to other people, a weird kind of microcosm of growing up, in that when I went to high school, the more popular cool kids were actually, for the most part, the kids who were getting good grades and like were kind of in line. And I'm from Racine, Wisconsin. I don't know if you're familiar, just across Lake Michigan from you.
Oh yeah, totally.
So
my grandmother is from Racine.
Oh, crazy. Small world. But yeah, so that just kind of was how it was where I grew up when I grew up. But I just can't imagine being in high school at a party and then having a 10 or 11-year-old around that wasn't like someone's little brother that was bothering everyone.
Yeah, no, totally.
So how did that even work? Because no offense to small you, but like, what does a 10 or 11-year-old have to offer in that group?
Seriously, I think there was, I hung out with my, some kids on my block that, we all grew up on the same street. Sure. So from a very young age, we were all hanging out from like 5 years old, 6, that we're always doing a lot of things together because it's easy to hang out with the guy that lives next door.
Right.
And so it was one of those things where it did kind of develop a brother, we had a brother relationship where, my sister is 2 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And we had times where I'd show up at parties in high school when my sister would be a sophomore. Or she'd be a junior and I was a freshman, and it like ruined her night, like just having her little brother at the party was like awful. Like it couldn't get any more embarrassing to her. Right. Yeah. But then I would run in a different circle when I was with my buddies that were seniors and I was a freshman. And it was just kind of, I think it was a little bit of like, those guys kind of took me under their wing. Mm-hmm. And there was a little bit of, I think sport mentality. A lot of us were athletes. Sure. So you had a little bit of that understanding of, you take care of the guys that are under you. You got mentored by guys that were older. Sure. Obviously, it's not great mentorship, but it's still mentorship.
They maybe need to mentor themselves.
Yeah, totally. And and I will say, like, it wasn't as if this wasn't an every weekend thing. It would be, once a month or once every 2 months, or someone's parent would go out of town and they'd throw a party and people would show up. And yeah, I mean, there were times where I, showed up and it was kind of like, yo, what's he doing here? But then I had enough guys that vouched for me that were like, no, that's Phil. Like, Phil's cool. He can hang. And then after a while, I mean, all it takes is one or two of those things to where people are just like, oh, okay, that's fine. He's here. Yeah. And I think it was like being in a little bit of a smaller community. We kind of, you knew who people were. You rallied around each other. Yeah, I won't say that it's like the greatest thing. Like, it's off, like we shouldn't have been drinking and doing those things at that age. But it happens, and it did happen. So yeah, interesting. It is very interesting. I look back on it sometimes and I like, even now I'll think like, man, these kids are being like, they're doing so much crazy stuff, like the social media and all. And then I was like, we're doing pretty wild stuff too at that age, So I think it's like really easy to always be this like, so many people get in these like doomsday scenarios where like everything is awful now. The world is ending. The world's coming to a close. And it's like, there's always been some wild stuff going on. Maybe not for everyone.
Right.
But, this stuff there's a lot of things that have been going on for a while. So.
Right. I think it's just also, obviously, like you said, with social media, it's a lot more apparent in everyone's faces than when there wasn't such a way to broadcast everything everyone was doing.
Although I honestly feel like, and I might be wrong. I have no research to back this up. This is purely my opinion. But I think people would have known a lot sooner that I had issues and that I was doing what I was doing. Because as much as we say like, oh my God, these kids are posting all this crazy, at least they're posting it. Yeah. Because they could be doing it and you have no idea. And like, that's at least one thing is like, yeah, it's awful to know some of the things that are happening in some of our schools and what is happening with kids that are 10, 11, 12, the sexual, contact they're having, substance abuse issues, right? Like those are things that are awful that they're happening, but we know they're happening now. Like, whereas, I think, like if I had a cell phone if I had the ability to post every one of my moves, like, my parents would have known, like they would have been like I would have slipped up somewhere, as a 10, 11, 12, even as a 32-year-old guy, there's times where I'm like, man, do I need to post that? Whereas like, that's not the brain that you have when you're 13. Right. So at least we're now in a situation where we're knowing what's going on. We're able to see, and like, parents, my biggest encouragement would be just like, follow up. Like, don't feel bad about, don't ever feel bad about, am I invading my 13-year-old's privacy?
No, 13, like, they don't get privacy yet.
No, they don't get it. Like, you should know what's going on. And, and you should be able to speak up and say those things, because it is, I think it would have been I guess my point is, I think it would have been much more difficult for me to keep things under wraps the way that I was able to. Sure. Had I had social media the way it is now, because someone would have, even if it wouldn't have been me posting it, somebody would have posted like a video of Phil doing something ridiculous. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. As long as people are paying attention, it can be a benefit for sure. Yeah. I just think that sometimes and I think sometimes parents are like, oh, I don't know how to use that technology. And
that's not an excuse. Like, learn. Like, if your 13-year-old knows how to do it, like, you should know how to do it. And it's even, I always kind of joke, and I don't have children, so I'm sure that this always offends somebody. But, in my eyes, like, if I care about something, I study it. Like, if I care about speaking, I study how to speak. When I care about, television producing, I study other shows. I study people that are producing. I study what's working, what's not working. If you care about being a parent, I don't understand why you wouldn't read parenting books. I read parenting books, and I don't have children. I read. I'm a single guy in Los Angeles, and I read parenting books, and I read psychology books, and I read parenting and relationship and marriage books, and because it's fascinating, I want to know more. Right. you can learn a lot. Like this whole idea of like, oh, you just learn on the job. Like, sure, there's a lot of things that you can't learn from a book. You can't learn how to swim from a book. I totally get that. But there's a lot of great information out there for parents. There's a lot of great resources for people to be able to learn the best ways, like how are things working on a long-term scale. And I think that's what it is, right? Like if you have your kid is a test study of your parenting style that you won't really know how it turned out for another 25 years.
Yeah.
Because the truth is you could think you're doing a lot of things right, and you could be setting them up for something along the line, right? Like there's always something that's difficult. But when you study parenting and you read about parenting and you see the different ways people have done it and different theories, and you get an idea that you at least get to see results. Like if you do this style of parenting, here's some things positive and negative. And it's like, I don't understand why people wouldn't want to be as educated about bringing and raising life.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's my soapbox. I'll get off it. I'm sure parents will be like, you just don't understand, Phil. You don't know what it's like. And I don't. But I will say I want to. That's why I study.
Because I don't know beforehand. Before
exactly.
The craziness of a child around to maybe not have the luxury of being able to read and study as much as you think.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. But I mean, I will say that though, like, for as much as people talk about time, not having time, and there's a very small percentage of people in the world that operate at such an efficient level that they don't have time. Like the truth is, I'm trying to think of the quote, but it's like when I can't remember it, and my brain is, I'm losing it, but it's this idea that, it's like when action is required. Mm-hmm. Right? Like when action is required and a person doesn't act, at best, they're lazy. And at worst, they're a coward.
Ooh,
and it's like, if those are, and that's not me, that Brendan Bouchardy has a great book called Motivation Manifesto, which is fantastic. But it's like when action is required and we fail to act, at best, we're being lazy. And at worst, we're being a coward. And it's like, we all can find time. Yeah. If your boss immediately told you that you needed to do something, even if you didn't want to, you'd find time because that that's your livelihood. And it's like, that's how we have to motivate ourselves, is we have to hold ourselves to those same standards. That like, if reading the parenting book is important, if making time for date night with your spouse is important, if making sure that you're, taking your kids and going to the zoo and doing fun things, and like, if those aren't important to you, you will find time. Right. And we all have the same 24 hours in a day, regardless. And so I think it's like, it's easy to say, oh, I'm so busy. Busy is the most overused word now. Everyone
it's so glamorized right now,
right?
Too. Like
it is.
People are worshiping busy, and like sometimes I am, and this week specifically for me has been busy, but most of the time I don't feel busy, and that's partially by design. Like, I do a lot, but I don't like to say I'm busy. And like when people are like, oh, what's new with you? You seem really busy. I'm like, no, I'm not busy. I might be doing a lot, but I'm not busy.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, even the ants are busy. Everybody's busy. Like, what are you doing with?
Exactly.
Like, what are you, I think, and I'm guilty of this. So like, I'm not trying to sound high and mighty. Like I'm above this. Like I am the guy who will finish. I will do something, and then I will write it down on my to-do list just so I can cross it off. So I can, like, I'm that guy, Yeah. And so it's one of those things where I totally get it. And it's easy, it's easy to say like, I'm going to do it tomorrow, or like, I'm just not really feeling it. And, even, that was, I just
creative disciplines.
Yeah. And, we talked about it a little bit before we started. Like I had surgery on, a few days ago. Mm-hmm. And it's been one of those things where it's like, there was part of me that says like, oh, don't do anything. Just like relax, let it heal. And there's part of me that I can still talk. I can still get on a podcast and talk. I can still do that. Right. So it's like, even if, it's just set, I think it's making decisions ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So that when the difficult moment comes, or when you feel the resistance, or when you feel like, I'm super tired and I don't know what to do, or it's easier to just eat the pizza than to eat something healthy. We have to make those decisions before we're in that moment.
So
like you have to make the
willpower.
Yes, you have to make the decision not to eat the pizza before it's 6 inches from your mouth. You know what I mean? That's not the moment to be like, do I really want this pizza? Like,
when you can smell it, you really want it.
Exactly. You need to have that. You need to have made the decision well before that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny because normally I feel like in these interviews, I'm kind of trying to move people beyond, like, let's get to the next part of your story. But now I want to go back again.
Sure. Hey, that's what we're here. If it's got to be a 4-hour one, we're doing Joe Rogan podcast. Whatever.
Oh my goodness. I don't know about that, but
right.
I am curious about, so since you had already begun kind of a college kid lifestyle quite young, you said that when you were, I don't know if it was 17 or 19, you started DJing, and then you were in college, because I know you said you finished college before you were heading to LA. I'm curious if you can tell me a little bit about that and how that worked, as well as where you went to school, what you studied, and what you were hoping to do when you moved to LA.
Definitely. So I went to, I graduated high school. I went to Michigan State University.
Okay.
Go Green, Spartans. Okay. So I went to,
so I disagree. Go ahead.
We're fine though. Like, as long as it's not Wolverines, I'm okay. Right. And even, it is funny though. Like, I remember feeling like I was a really big sports fan growing up. And then I moved to LA and I was like, oh no, I was just a guy living in a sports town. Like, I don't care. Like, like now, like, when people are like, oh, Michigan State, I'm like, yeah, man, they're cool. They're schools. Like, I don't care. Like, it's like, I'll watch the game and like we can, but like, I don't do fantasy football. I don't get into like, I always joke. I'm like, I refuse to wear another man's name on my back.
My husband said the same thing.
But so I went to Michigan State University and I started out as a general business pre-law. Okay. I'd always thought I wanted to be a lawyer, but I think that was more just because I wanted the prestige that came with being a lawyer. Like, I liked it, but I didn't love it. I liked it, but it wasn't everything to me.
Getting you out of bed every morning.
Totally. Right. Yeah. And then, so I started doing that. And then I, was doing business classes and because business seems smart. It seemed like, you can do a lot with business. And I've always been passionate about TV, film, making content. Since I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I was recording videos and making them, and they were all horrible. But I would make them and I would share them to my friends, and always wanted, I did plays growing up and would do speech contests and things like that. And so I always liked performing and I liked entertaining others. But I didn't know anyone that had done that. I'm growing up in Metro Detroit. I don't know anyone that works in TV. I don't know anyone that works in film. I don't know anything in that world. So there was part of me that was really fear-based of like, do I really want to put all my eggs in this one basket?
Yeah.
When I have no idea what that's going to look like. And so I stayed safe and I did, I started doing business. Mm-hmm. And it was strictly because, I went from being number 4th in my class, National Honor Society, all of these things, to like first semester out the gate, like 2.0 at Michigan State, like rushed a fraternity. All I wanted to do was party and have fun. I remember I got, before I had Calculus 1, and I remember taking my Calculus final, and I had been throwing up the night before because I had drank the whole night before. And like a friend of mine had to wake me up out of bed and get me off to my final because I was like, I cared so much about drinking and partying that I wasn't focused on academics at all.
Yeah.
And so I had gone a few years of doing that, and my GPA, I had started to work my GPA back up, but I really ended up kind of getting myself to a position where for me to get into the business school, mm-hmm. it would have taken me another extra semester and a half mm-hmm. to be able to bring my GPA up high enough to where I could get into the business school. Mm-hmm. And so I looked at myself and I was like, you know what? Like, I'm not even feeling business right now. Mm-hmm. I'm loving my TV and media courses, and you know what? Like, I'm going for it. So I switched my major to telecommunication, and I was studying TV, film, and media and radio and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I ended up finishing, I finished with like a 3.9 in my major. Right. I actually was able to graduate. I finished a semester early, so I graduated Michigan State at 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, in looking back, like I'm such a, like, I did what I needed to do, but not because I wanted to. Like I'm totally that kid that for the longest time, like I did things just for the gold star. Like I didn't study because, I did enough so that I would do, like I would do enough to get the good grade, or, I belonged to all of these extracurricular activities, and I'd show up for like one meeting and then a party, but then it would be on my resume. Like that was me. Like I'm that guy who I'm that guy who tried to game the system and find, typical cops kid. I'm entitled. I think the rules don't apply to me. But so that was kind of college for me. It was one of those things where, once I did finally got into my major and into it, it started to make more sense. I started to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I knew I wanted to move to LA. I was still very oblivious to the idea that I was having issues with substance abuse, and that was taking, I had issues with going asleep without, falling asleep without drinking and different things, but I never really thought that was a problem. And then, yeah, I mean, that was another thing that was difficult, was like having those moments of like still doing well in school. I'm still, like what they call like functioning. Right.
Yeah.
And it was preventing me from getting the help that I needed, which luckily that, the DUI then helped me and got me on that path. But, was that enough of a run through with college? I don't know if I got through all of it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about then the bold moves of moving to LA and what you're doing here, as well as we've talked about a little bit the DUI and how that kind of set you on a different path. But getting into that too, I think would be really great.
Totally. Yeah. So the getting to LA was, I can tell you, the number one piece of advice that I received from someone was pick a day, and no matter what, you're leaving that day. Yeah. And it's like, I can't even, like, it was helpful in the moment, but like looking back on it, it's like that changed everything about moving to LA. We hear people that want to move all the time. You hear people say, oh, I want to go to LA, or I want to do this. If you want to do something, you probably aren't going to do it. You need to tell yourself you're going to do it. I'm moving to LA on February 23rd. It made it real. It made it 100% real. And so for me, I had that first year. So I graduate college in December of 2007. I get the DUI in January of 2008. And I didn't move to LA until February of 2009. So I had a year to kind of get my finances in order, get off probation. But I tapped myself out financially. I didn't have anything. Yeah. So it was like everything was all about going into just save mode. Like my first job out of college was I was in sales, in radio sales. I worked for a radio station where I was an intern and worked there trying to sell. And sales is impossible when you don't see the future where you're selling. Like you're setting up all of these anyone that listens to this and is in sales, like, you're developing relationships that you may never get a sale from for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the line. Like sales is a long-term business.
Sure.
And for me, it was like, I don't want to be here in Detroit anymore. I'm like developing So after about 3 months, I was just feeling so claustrophobic of like, I feel like I'm going to let these people down. I'm going to build these relationships and then I'm going to leave. Like, this isn't smart for me. I learned a lot in sales, like just in some of the, how to, the resilience, the acceptance of no. I learned a lot of great things in those 6 months, but, it just wasn't for me. So I stepped away. I ended up working because of I had been DJing this whole time. So I had a little envelope that said California on it, and any DJ money, it was going in this envelope. And I just kept adding money to it. And it was, DJing. I actually was a substitute teacher at the school that I attended. So that was interesting. I actually loved teaching. It was I loved being in classrooms, and I loved being in that environment, which is now why I love to go and speak at high schools. And, and I think for me, losing my mom and going through so much during those high school years, there's a part of me that has a lot of passion and in love for kids that are in that 14 to 18-year-old range.
Sure.
But so I really enjoyed that. I worked at a Guitar Center, selling DJ equipment. So it was like one of those things. I've always been willing to do the work. I've always been willing to. I get a lot of pride in waking up at 5:15 and going to bed at 10:15 and going the whole day. Like I love that. Like I love being passionate about what I'm doing, and so that was kind of that. I will say that year was really important for me to save money. I mean, I think I moved to California with like $3,000. Mm-hmm. So I think that's all that I'd been able to put together, like was $3,000. And I DJ'd an event and they paid me in a gift card. Like they paid me in a Visa gas gift card. And that was my gas. That was like my gas thing for when I came to LA. Like that's all it was. And I mean, I'd never been west of Wisconsin. I'd been to the Wisconsin Dells, and then I'd never been west of that. And when I moved, I did an 11-day road trip to get out to LA, and I met up with friends all along the way. And I had a buddy that came with me on the road trip, and he was on spring break. And so we had a lot of fun. But it was totally one of those things where like I didn't have anywhere to stay when I got to Los Angeles. I actually was gonna stay with a girl I knew from Michigan State. Yeah. I got to Chicago. And she called me, and I was like, "Hey, I'm so excited! I can't wait to see you. It's gonna be fun." And she was like, "Oh, when are you coming again?" I was like, "I'm in Chicago. I'm on my way." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, it's not gonna work anymore."
Oh no!
And so I was like, "All right," but I, like in my head, I was like, "It's gonna work. Like I'm going to California." Like, and so I got to California. I didn't have anywhere to stay. Yeah. We were leaving Vegas, and we're getting ready to leave LA, and I tell my buddy that was on the road trip with me, I'm like, "Yo, I don't know what I'm going to do. Who do we know in San Diego?" And like, there was a girl in high school with in San Diego. So we drove to San Diego to see San Diego. Yeah. And then we got up to LA. I think the first thing we went and saw was like Venice Beach. We wanted to see, Muscle Beach and that whole, just being a bunch of kind of douchey guys that love to work out. We had to go see Venice Beach. And, but I didn't have a place to stay, but I always tell kids, I try to mentor kids from Michigan State or that want to move out to LA. And it's like, if you want it bad enough, you will find a way to make it work. It might not be pretty. It might not always look the way that you want it to look. There's going to be a lot of moments where you feel like you're failing. Yeah. And that's fine. Like if that's why it's so important to have the long-term goals and to know what you're really going after. Because it's like that, having that vision is what allows you to be able to like withstand the small moments of resistance and those moments where you're thinking like, this was a huge mistake. Like this is silly. Cause I mean, I get to LA and I hit up every DJ place I can. So I'm trying to DJ. I'm working, I got a job at a fitness, at a vitamin shop. I got a job at PacSun. I'm working, doing clerical work. I was doing extra work. And so there was a moment when I'm like, here I am, I'm 23 years old. I have a bachelor degree from a Big Ten university, and I'm folding little kids' board shorts, and I'm selling old women Metamucil. Like, what is going on? Like, this is awful. Like, I don't know. Like, and I remember calling my dad and being like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. And when I moved out to LA, I moved out during the writer's strike of 2009. Okay. So there wasn't a lot of work going around. Right. And I remember, and I would like go door to door at production companies, and I'd go and do all my jobs, and then I'd go to the gym and I'd go basketball, and I would rinse and repeat. And that was my cycle. And I remember feeling like I'm never going to get a job. Like, I don't know anyone. I don't have any in. I'm just some kid from Detroit. Like, I'm just like, what am I going to do? Yeah. And then I was having a really good game of basketball one day, and I'm going back and forth with this guy, and we're kind of talking a little bit of trash to each other. He ends up being a Midwest guy, and turns out he was getting promoted as soon as he found someone to replace him as an assistant at a production company. Perfect. Me and him became friends. He brought me in for an interview, and I ended up getting the job. It was with a company that no one had ever heard of, on a show that no one had ever heard of. The company was called Studio Lambert. The show was called Undercover Boss on CBS. Okay. Nobody knew what it was because it was first. I started when it was first season. Yeah. And and ended up being a huge hit of a show.
Right.
And that was my in. That was my first in. And it's like, and now I've, that same guy has gone, he's an executive VP of a company here in LA, and I've produced shows for Netflix with him. And I'm actually starting on Monday on a new show for him. And it's like, I couldn't have planned that. Like I couldn't have planned meeting a guy at the basketball court that would become a friend, that we would end up working together. But it was also a thing of like, if you know what you want to do and you're willing to tell people what you want to do and you're willing to keep doing it, you'll find someone. Because if it wouldn't have been him, it would have been someone at the gym, or it would have been someone at one of those production companies I walked into. And it's like, when you just, and here's the thing, my first day I started at that company was within 3 months of moving to LA. So I moved to LA in the middle of the writer's strike and was able to get a job on a big show in less than 3 months with no network, having no idea what I was doing. But in the moment, I thought I had made the biggest mistake. I thought there was no way I was ever going to be able to do this. I'm going to have to move back to Michigan, and people are going to make fun of me. And this is so dumb. Why did I think I could do this? Like, I'm stupid. Like, everyone's going to laugh. And it worked. And like, now I've been here 9 years, and like, I'm producing TV shows, and I'm doing all these things. And it's just one of those moments where it's like, when you're in it, it's easy to beat yourself up, and it's easy to want to quit. But like you're probably more than halfway there, and I always say, like, you didn't come this far to only come this far.
Yeah.
And so anyone that's listening, if you're in the middle of something right now, like, keep pushing, like, just keep going. And it's like, understand that it's tough. And here's the thing, that story, I love that story because that story reminds me of what I came through. And that's what makes it worth it. Like, knowing those moments of what you overcome is 1,000 times better than, the going to parties or going to like award shows, like that, whatever, like that's whatever. But like, knowing what you've been able to overcome, like that's where the magic is. I'm going to stop talking. I talk so much.
It works out well for me. It works out well for a podcast interview.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm curious now, you've shared a lot about your story and kind of what you're doing, what you've done. Do you know what your purpose is? And if so, what is it? And if not, don't feel bad, because I realize that that's a huge question and that it evolves for a lot of people.
Oh, no. I mean, I think that I'm actually trying to pull something up on my computer just because I don't want to make a mistake and say it wrong. But no, I mean, I think that's a great question, right? And I actually encourage a lot of my friends to have that, to know, like, what exactly is it that we're chasing? Like, what is our purpose? What is our mission? And here, I'll read you my mission statement. This is a mission statement that I developed and I wrote for myself. Mm-hmm. I read this every single morning. Every morning I get up and I read it. I used to have it printed out huge on this wall right behind me. And then I repainted it and I had to take it down. So I got to get it figured out. But here, I'll read it for you guys. And this is my mission statement for life. With unapologetic positivity and immense gratitude, I pledge to be actively present in a continuous state of happiness and serenity by sharing love and radiating joy to all people. I demand to be forever in a constant pursuit of an extraordinary life with a thirst for knowledge and wisdom, an acceptance of struggle, hardship, and failure, as well as a dedication to inspire, motivate, encourage, and empower others to reach for their best selves. Through a strong connection and relationship with the God of my understanding, I will be a man of action and demand consistent progress through this beautiful and blessed life. So that's the mission statement that I've written for my life. When I sat, and if I sit and I think about at my funeral, what do I want people to say? If people go, man, Phil was one heck of a DJ and the guy could really produce TV shows. Yeah. Like, what a failure that would be in my eyes. Like, if that's what I am ever known for, are the shows that I've produced, or, if that's what I'm known for, is like, even I like to have fun and I like to entertain, But if that's the extent of what people remember me for, if that's my impact, I feel like I wasted some time, and I really want to, I've learned, I've been given so much freedom and so much peace that has come from being a person of service. Really wanting to serve other people, wanting to encourage others, wanting to speak with others, wanting to use my story to be able to help other people get over their story. I think that every one of us, we're all meant for, like, we all have the ability to do amazing things. All of us do, regardless of what situations or circumstances you have in your life. Look, some people get really raw deals, flat out. There are people that get really unfair situations in life. And I don't mean to belittle that, but every person that we look up to, the Gandhis, the Nelson Mandelas, the Martin Luther Kings, that we look up to people because they transcend their situation, because they didn't allow their circumstances to prevent them from doing something bigger. I don't know many victims that we put on a pedestal, and it's like, we don't always have, like, if all of a sudden a person burst in my room and tried to rob me, right? Like, I have no control over that. Like, being a victim isn't always in our power.
Sure.
We can't control whether we're a victim or not.
That would make a really interesting podcast, by the way.
Yeah. However, yeah, totally, right? We can't control if we're a victim. But what we can control is if we're going to adopt a victim's mentality and a victim's mindset. And that's always within our control. Absolutely. And it's like, you see people who have been, for lack of a better term, have really just been victimized by life. And they show up powerfully for people. Right. And it's like, and we look at that as such an inspiration. And there's almost moments where, I'll tell this story. I saw a quote. I get tons of quotes that always are being sent to us. I'm sure a lot of us do. We subscribe to these things and they come. And there's a quote by Mother Teresa where she talks about love and caring of others. And it's a great quote. And it's so great that I can't remember it. But it's because that's not the point. The point was that it said Mother Teresa, and next to it, it always says like what somebody is. Sure. It says Mother Teresa, saint. And I had issue with that because I appreciate that who she is and what she's done. Right. But when we say saint, that feels unhuman. That feels like it's
unattainable.
Not real. Exactly. Yeah. And she's a woman. Yeah. She's a woman who was born on this planet like any other woman, like any other human, who made the decision to behave and be in she made a decision on what type of a life she was going to have. Right. And we all can do that. Like, we all have, like, she was not born with some magical spiritual, saintness. Right. She's just a person who made decisions. And we all have that ability to make the decisions to show up powerfully for others, show up powerfully in our lives, excuse me, and to really make decisions. And I think part of it, and it's like what you asked about, part of it stems from going to the end and thinking, what do we want to be about? What type of a person do we want to be? And write it down, right? And, in the same way that me picking a date made it easy for me to move, for you to be able to design, and for all of us to be able to design the type of lives that we want, we have to decide what we want, and we have to decide what that life looks like. So it's like, I encourage people all the time, like, get pen out, get paper out, and write, what are the attributes, what are the things you want out of your life? Who do you want to be? How do you want to be remembered? How do you want, and not in a codependent way, but in a way of like, who do you want, what type of a person do you want to be? And then understand you can be that person. Like, you don't have to, I think so often we get caught up in, our society is so pushed on, what do you have to do? Like, you have to do something. Like, you have to do things, you have to achieve things so that you can become this thing, right? Like, you have to do all of this work so that you can have X, Y, and Z possessions so that so you can be a success. Right. And we subscribe to this idea of, we have to, do something so we can have something so we can be something. And it's like, no, grab be, make a decision on who you want to be. And that's where you begin from. You make a decision that you want to be a loving, caring, positive, a hardworking person who gets up at 5. You make whatever you want your life to look like, however you want to design your life, and then write it down, and then just be it. Just start doing it. And then, the thing that I noticed is when I started to take ownership of myself and who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up for other people, it made all of my actions, the doing, so much more effective. Like if it's your birthday and I walk up to you and I say, hey, happy birthday. I got you this. Happy birthday. Right. And I give you this water, right? Versus if I go, oh my God, like I was thinking about you and then it was your birthday and I'm so excited and like, hey, look, I got you this. I really hope you enjoy it, but you're awesome. And I give it to you, right?
Yeah.
The action is the same. What I did is the same. I gave you a bottle of water for a birthday gift. Mm-hmm. But the way I was being completely changes your interpretation of me as a person. And your response to my gift is going to be completely different. And it's like so often we get caught up in just what do we need to do? And it's like, no, how do we need to do it? Who do we need to be? Who do we need to become so that we can be the most effective for other people? And also, it's just, I don't know, it's more fun being peaceful and having peace and being fun and loving life and enjoying other people. I don't know. I don't like being miserable.
Right.
It kind of sucks. And I've played that game and I don't want to do that. So, I know there was a question in there somewhere, and I hope I answered it.
I think you got it, yeah. So you were talking a little bit before, and it's come up as a theme for sure, with the different hardships and struggles that you've gone through to get where you are. I'm curious, in your life, what's the scariest thing you've done or the scariest moment of your life so far?
The scariest moment of life. Man, that's a good one. I don't know if it was the scariest moment, but there was a moment where I made a decision. I wanted to tour Europe as a DJ. Mm-hmm. And it was just something I'd always kind of wanted to do. Yeah. And it was so difficult. I posted a flyer on social media of the tour dates and what countries I was going to before I had ever booked a show.
Okay.
And it was hard to do. All of the feelings of being a fraud, that's a really big limiting thought for me. It's like I feel like I'm a fraud. Like I feel like somehow, I feel like everyone's gonna somehow
they're gonna figure out that you snuck in through a basketball game.
Right? It's totally right. Yeah. I have that feeling, and it was like
we all do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That feeling is so inherent because we're all just little kids trying to figure it out, right? But I think that was when I posted that, there was such a weight that was lifted off because I eventually ended up booking some shows and I went to Europe and I DJ'd in Europe. But I feel like there was a part of me that I don't like lying. I don't like portraying something that I'm not. And so I think now here's what I'll say. I think the reason that I struggle with answering that question is from a fear standpoint. I think the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with in my life is my mother passing. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I kind of talk sometimes with people, and I want to do a post about this, but I haven't found the right wording for it. But there's almost hang with me as I say this, you guys, because I feel like you might take it the wrong way. But there's a certain some people have been blessed with tragedy. Mm-hmm. There's a part of if you've had a life that's been very, very easy, mm-hmm. And you didn't do anything wrong, and there's nothing wrong with that, and that's great. But there's a certain mode of are you really battle tested? Do you really know how much you can take mm-hmm. until you've really gone through something? And you see a lot of people that do really amazing things in life normally have a turning or have something that they can feed off of. something that was so bad. You know, one of my favorite motivational speakers is a guy named Eric Thomas, in E.T., the hip hop preacher. You know, he talks about he was homeless. He ate out of trash cans. He's a high school dropout. He remembers that, how bad it was, and that fuels everything. And I think for me, like on a timeline of like the best things in the world and the worst things in the world, on that timeline for me, the worst thing in the world that can ever happen is my mom dies. Like, that's the worst thing. So when I experience something else in life, I try to keep that in perspective. Like, where does that fall on my timeline, on that continuum of like, how is this really that big of a deal?
Right.
Like, you got like, okay, the project you were working on for 6 weeks and you had 6 more weeks to go got canceled. And that means that you have to find a new job. And that means that like, okay, you're not going to have money coming in that you thought you were going to have. Sure. No one's gone.
Right.
Like, it's not that big of a deal. And here's the thing. If I chose to let that blow up my world,
It could.
it doesn't change anything. It doesn't
Right.
change the fact that the circumstance I still need to deal with is I no longer have a job and I need to find a new one. So whether I do that with happiness or with sadness, like acceptance is so key. You know, like for me, obviously, and a lot of people, anyone that knows anything about recovery, you know, the serenity prayer is such a big thing. And it's, you know, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That 3 lines have given me so much perspective and helped me so much over the years, because I always stop any moment that I'm feeling like really frustrated or overwhelmed, or, you know, or I'm feeling stupid. You know, I have those moments. I feel like I'm not good enough. The limiting thoughts start to kick in, and I pump the brakes and I pause and I say that prayer and I go, all right, cool. Like, is this something I have any control over? If it isn't, that's just life. That's life on life's terms. Let that go. Like, accept that there's nothing I can do about that.
Right.
If it is something I can do something about, great. What do we do? Like, let's do something about it.
Yeah.
Let's make a list. Let's get on. Like, let's attack it and see what we can do. And then and then obviously as time goes on and you learn more and more and you have more of these experiences, more of the wisdom comes of being able to differentiate those things. You know, the nice thing is every single person that does not have the name Phillip Andrew is completely outside of my realm of control. Completely. Right. So once I accept that, I can stop trying to control people. I can stop trying to control situations and scenarios. And once I realize, I'm the only one I really can do anything about, it just gives a new, I don't know, like I said, acceptance is so key for me. Right. And that's why I put it in my mission statement with the, you know, the acceptance of struggle, hardship, and failure. Because it's like, I don't want to bang my head against the wall.
Right.
There's no need for it, you know? So I'd rather just look at a problem and say, okay, is this a big problem? At what level, where does this fall on my scale? How important is this problem? And how do we move forward with my mission statement in line? Like knowing what my mission is, how important is this thing? And I feel like that really helps me a lot to just really kind of slow down and realize, like, any scenarios, like, is this really that big of a deal? Yeah. And there are some things that are totally, sure. And there's things that need our attention. And, you know, I definitely I'm not a bury your head in the sand kind of guy. Like, you definitely need to, you know, work through things. But yeah, I think a lot of times we get really, really in our head about, you know, the expectations that we set or what we think things are supposed to be like. And it's not always the best. I love there's the saying, I think Tony Robbins says it. It's like, all suffering is an obsession with the self. And it's like, we have to stop, like, you know, stop having all of these unrealistic expectations of what life is supposed to be for us and just start appreciating life. Like being grateful. Gratitude is the answer for so much. Yeah. I don't know. I love this stuff. Like, I love talking about this, and because I feel like it's, I think it's important. I think it's resetting for us to understand that, you know, it's why I love group therapy. Like, it's why I love things like AA, because it's like, you know, I think people should do therapy normally if you want to do one-on-one. But the problem with one-on-one is it becomes this thing of like, you're my therapist, and I come to you with my problems, and we're going to talk about me and my problems and what's going on in my life. And it's all about me. And it's like, we got enough in this world that's all about us. And it's like, when you go and you experience things like AA or other different types of groups, or just group therapy in general for any type of, you know, whether it's, grief or, divorce, whatever it is, when you get to relate with other people and you get to hear what they're going through, and you get to understand that there's other people going through things that A, you can either help them along the path, or B, they can help you along the path. Like, we are meant to be social creatures. We're meant to do this thing together. And I think that's why podcasts have blown up so much in the recent history, because people love hearing these conversations. And the sad thing is, a lot of these conversations aren't happening in other people's normal life, or they don't have people that they can speak this type of way to. And I think it's why people enjoy listening to podcasts, because they hear people talking about this, because I think we need it. Like, we need to hear this type of resiliency talk, and this, like, getting through life. Life is hard, and it's really hard if you're doing it alone. Really hard. And it's really hard if you've got a lot of secrets, and your secrets are like overwhelming, and they're, growing in the dark behind you, and they're holding you down. And it's like, I think communication and just being open with one another and being vulnerable and open and transparent, I don't know, that's all my thing. And so I love it. Like, I get fueled so much by having conversations like this. And so thank you. I appreciate you letting me come and monopolize this hour. And I just talk so much, but I hope people enjoy it,
Absolutely. And people ask me, sometimes like, oh, are you going to get advertisers for your podcast? And I'm like, no, I don't want to monetize this. Like, if my podcast leads to something else that I can make it cool. But right now I actually spend a lot of money to have a podcast, but it's worth it for me, because just like you said, you're fueled by this. Like, every day that I do a podcast interview, I'm like, and then I'm going to go to, I'm like so fired up from just meeting the other person and learning about them and what fuels them. And it's always contagious. So
I think that's so great, because it's like, and even it's an hour, right? Like an hour talk with somebody, or people will be like, oh, I don't have back to this, like, I don't have time thing. Right. But I always encourage people, like, find something that you get a return on your investment. Like, if you wake up and say you wake up and with no added help, you've got a solid 6 hours of work in you. Like, let's be realistic. Like, we might all go to work for 12. We're not working that long, right? Like, say you've got a solid 5 hours of work in you once you get up. If you can listen to a motivating podcast, or if you can watch a motivational video, that's even say you watch one that's 30 minutes. If that 30 minutes can push you to get a stronger extra hour and a half of work, that's a smart investment in yourself. Like, that's a smart time, like, that's a good thing to do. So it's like, I know a lot of people talk about like, oh, well, I don't have time to meditate, or I don't have time to, to pray, or I don't have time to read, or I don't have time to do these things. But those things, and they're not for everyone, right? Not everyone is religious. Not everybody prays. Not everyone believes. Not everybody needs to meditate, but it's important for each of us to find what is it that works for us, that fuels us, that pushes us, that creates, like you said, that moment where you come out of a podcast and you're like on fire, and because we have to find those things. Like, life can get mundane and boring, and like, and especially along the journey, like it's tough. And it's like, you start something new and everyone's in that honeymoon period. And you're like, oh my God, this is great. This is amazing. And then there's that dip. And it's like, you have to get through that dip, and then it levels off, and then you can grind. But there's so many times that we get like beat down in that dip and people don't work. It's like, you got to find, like, create hacks for yourself, create things that you need to know. I joke, I need to fill-proof my life. At times I want to sit around and do nothing, or I want to I want to flip through social media, or I want to do a ton of things that aren't pushing me forward.
Right.
Like, so I have to feel proof. So it's like, I create, systems. I write out my entire to-do list in the mornings. I write out my schedule. I write everything out so that there's no thought involved. So it's like, I schedule everything. I schedule time to take a walk. I schedule time to just to do nothing, because I know that I need to block these things. I need to hold myself to that schedule. And then the discipline of doing those things has brought me a ton of freedom. I feel there's a moment when it's like, oh, people say, I don't want to schedule my life like that. I don't want to live my life so scheduled. And I'm like, yeah, but it helps me. It actually gives me freedom, because then when I schedule 2 hours of nothing, I feel calm doing nothing. I don't feel like, I should be doing something else, or I could be doing this, or I could be doing this. And I actually relax, and I actually truly can just sit in a park and look at stuff, or just read and be calm and not have the brain rolling where I'm like, oh my God, I need to be doing this and this, and then this, and then I need that. And oh my God, if I do this now, I'm never going to do that. And then it's like, now I'm stressed. Yeah. So it's actually, for me, being very deliberate about blocking out schedules of time and building that thing. It's given me a lot of freedom and happiness for my life. So.
Yeah. Are you a Jocko Willink fan?
I do like Jocko. It's funny. Someone else said that to me.
Reminded me of that.
Because I remember I had written a blog post about the freedom or discipline is freedom.
Right.
And then I guess someone told me that that's a big thing that he talks about. Yeah. And I actually got it from a secondhand story in AA from a woman who was, she had substance abuse issues. Mm-hmm. She had been addicted for years on a lot of different drugs. And then she finally hit a spot where her life was in shambles. Mm-hmm. It was awful. Her life was falling to pieces. She finally got to AA. She started to experience the discipline of going all of the time, going to meetings, working the steps, working with other alcoholics and addicts, and doing these things. Mm-hmm. And she experienced that boom. Her discipline of showing up actually was giving the freedom of her life back. Mm-hmm. And then she had an incident. She had been clean a couple of years, and then boom, she got in a car accident. And then she was like, she had to go and do a bunch of rehab. She wasn't able to walk. Sure. And she had to do a bunch of things. So then she thought back to this moment when I know that my discipline can provide me freedom. And if I do that again, at first it was freedom, it was mental freedom and emotional freedom. Mm-hmm. She's like, now it's going to be my physical freedom. If I stay disciplined with doing the right routines, eating right, and I'm doing what the doctors say, and I'm staying consistent. And there were a lot of moments that she wanted to quit.
I'm sure.
A lot of moments when it's easy to be like, you know what? Hell with this. This is unfair. I didn't deserve this. Why did God do this? This is BS. This is no one else is dealing with this. This sucks. The world is, and it's easy to go down that line of thinking. But she said, no, I'm going to be disciplined with my thoughts. I'm going to be disciplined with my actions. And she eventually walked out of the hospital, and she got her freedom back. And it was like that. When I heard those stories, I was like, man, I loved that. I love that idea that discipline brings freedom. And I even like Jocko. Jocko, the cool thing with Jocko, and anyone who doesn't know, so Jocko is a former Navy SEAL, right? Yeah. And he wakes up at 4:30 every single morning. Mm-hmm. And he takes a photo of it and puts it on Instagram. And I remember seeing it, and I saw that he did it consistently, and I was like, that's awesome. Consistency is amazing. But I didn't know the story behind it. And I think then someone told me the story, and I hope it's the right one. And someone tell me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to be in the wrong story. But, and it's what you talked about what's our mission or what is the vision. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what are we making things mean? Because for him, I think the story was he looks at it, there's a terrorist that wants to kill Americans and wants to kill American soldiers. Mm-hmm. And he's out there right now making a bomb. And so Jocko gets up every day at 4:30 when that guy is sleeping to say, I'm ready. Not on my watch. I'm ready when I'm here to stand up. And that's what he made it mean. He's just waking up at 4:30. Here's the thing. Him waking up at 4:30 doesn't change anything that's happening anywhere in the world, right?
Right.
But for him, he personally made 4:30 mean something more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he's able to be consistent with it. And I think that's why where a lot of people fail in their goals is they don't know why they're doing it. They haven't added a why that really makes it feel powerful. And because it's easy to say like, I'll get to it tomorrow. Or like, I woke up 4:30 the last 5 days. Like, do I really need to do it a sixth? No one's really going to pay attention. Like what? It's easy to set those, to start to like create these excuses for ourselves. Mm-hmm. But he made it mean something so much more powerful. If I don't get out of bed, I'm letting my soldiers down. I'm letting my country. And it's like, I feel like there's so much power in that of like, create, like, what are we making things mean? Mm-hmm. You know, like I think about it, like with my mission, I think at times like there's people that need to hear you, Phil. Yeah. There's people that need to hear your message. And there's going to be people, you're not going to resonate with everyone, but there's going to be some people that you can help and you will be able to be a catalyst of change in their life. Mm-hmm. I can't change anyone's life for them. And I know that, and I'm not trying to change the world in that instance. Mm-hmm. But all I can ever do is I want to be a spark. I want to be a spark that helps maybe ignite something for someone else, that makes them think a different way, get excited for something, mm-hmm. for them to really want to chase their goal. I just want to be the spark, and that's it. Like, that is my goal. Right. And it's like, because there's people out there that need that spark the way I needed the spark. Mm-hmm. And we should be able to do that for everyone. And so like when I sit and I think about a kid who doesn't have a dad, who doesn't have someone that's pouring into him, who doesn't love, or a kid that feels unloved and like they're unworthy, like I picture that kid and I'm like, that's the kid you're working for. Right. You know, that's the kid that you're going for and you want to encourage. And when I do that, when I think about that, when I put like, who am I doing it for? What is this purpose? What is the big thing? It makes it easy to like the alarm to go off and my feet are on the floor in 3.5 seconds. And I'm out of bed and I made the bed and I'm getting in my routine and I'm ready to go. And I don't sit in one, like, I don't worry about getting out of bed. I don't think about like, oh, it's so early, because I jump out of bed because I've made that decision. I know there's people out there that need the message, mm-hmm. you know, and making that why is so key. At least it has been for me. And I'd love, you know, and here's the thing, if anyone is listening to this, and if you're still listening, I assume that you're enjoying it. So thank you very much. But if you're still listening and if there's anything that you disagree with, like I always love to learn from other people's opinion. Like you can always reach out. Like I'm at Phillip Andrew LA on all the social media things, or you can go phillipandrewla@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, I always love to learn different ways of thinking. Like I try not to be set in my ways. And so I always love it when people are like, yo, Phil, that's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. And I love to know that. So, but yeah, I don't know. Jocko's an interesting cat. He's an interesting guy.
He is. I saw him speak live and he's
How is he?
He's scary, but he's awesome.
I can only imagine how powerful he must be.
He just definitely has a presence for sure. Yeah.
And the one thing I'll say that, and I do like Jocko, and I like Gary Vee, and I like some of these other guys, but the one thing I also talk about too is not being, you know, like I like Gary, and he resonates with a lot of people because he's very blunt. Yeah. And very straight. And I think he's a dose of reality that a lot of kids aren't hearing. So I think it's good. Like he's the anti, here's your trophy. Millennial. Yeah. Yeah, he's the anti, here's your trophy guy. But the one thing that I will say is I don't think that there's anything wrong. And I'm not even going to say it that way. There's nothing wrong with enjoying your life where you're at. Yeah. And that's my biggest thing that I have an issue with some of the other guys out there that are pushing this message of you need to be a millionaire. You need to have the car. You need to get up every day and you need to grind and rise and grind and you got to do all the and that's fine and it's great to motivate. But if you are working so hard and you're not enjoying your life, and that's really key. Like you can work really hard and love every second of it.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is the case with Gary Vee.
Yeah.
But like watching his Snapchat is exhausting, and that's not the life that I want to live. Like
Exactly.
I watch him in like 5 cities in a day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm tired just watching your clips. And
Yeah.
I know that you're a father and a husband, and I don't want to be that kind of mother or wife, and I would not want to marry that man.
Exactly, right? Exactly. And I think that's the problem is people start to think that that's the only way that success looks. And it's like, no, like that's why it's so important. And I say this to so many of my clients that I coach. We've got to identify the life that you want to live, not the life you've been thinking you're supposed to be living.
Right.
And it's like there's so much of that where we think that we need to be X amount of followers. We need to be doing so much of this. We need to you need to be enjoying your life, and you need to love it, and you need to find meaning. That, in my eyes, that doesn't mean just sitting in your basement smoking weed for 7 hours a day. Right. Like you need to find something you enjoy doing. But I like to encourage people without making them feel like I don't want to push the rat race life on people. Like I want to help people with peace. That's why I always say, like, I will coach people, and I'm not here to coach you on how to make your first million. Mm-hmm. I'm not a millionaire. So I'm not going to say that I love that. I love all the people writing millionaire books that have never been a millionaire. It's fascinating to me. It's like, I will not, I am not going to tell people that, hey, I'm going to coach you to your first million. What I will coach you to is I want to coach people to be able to be moving and be accepting progress, be moving towards their goals, identifying their goals, but also having a certain element of peace and joy and happiness where you're currently at, in appreciation for your life where you're currently at, seeing the blessings that you have, the resources you have, starting to be a type of person that always sees solutions rather than the type of person that always sees problems. And it's like, because I've met a lot of people that have a lot of money that are not happy, that do not feel fulfilled. I mean, without getting super dark, I mean, we've seen just recently with the suicides of some of these people that, from the outside looking in, have amazing lives. The Kate Spades, Anthony Bourdain, even Chester from Lincoln Park, Chris Cornell. Like, and not to use them as examples because it's what happened to them is tragic, and I think it's so sad, and my heart breaks for that.
Absolutely.
But it's like, if that isn't an example, that the money and the success isn't going to be the answer for everything, like, I don't know what is. Right. And it's like, and there's nothing wrong with those levels of success, but it can't be the only thing you're chasing, and that's why a lot of things, one of the things I do with a lot of my clients is when we do identify a goal. And a lot of times this ends up happening with people that have picked a goal that isn't really their goal. It's society's goal. And it's like, okay, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to picture you're looking, or you just stepped on stage and you're accepting the Academy Award. And you've accepted it. Okay, and you've got it. And how are you feeling? Oh, I'm feeling great. Okay, great. And now you walk off stage, and the person that was up against you says, you know what? You're full of it. You're garbage. Like, my project was better. And they tear you down. It's like, now what did that do to you? And it's like, because now we're identifying, like, what does it really mean? Yeah. Is it just, are you doing the award because you want to win the award? Or are you still attached to because what you think that award is going to say about you to other people? And then that's putting us in a place of being codependent, where we are handing over our self-worth to other people. We're allowing them to dictate how we feel about ourselves. When I try to really encourage people, and I think that that's a big reason why people don't pursue their goals. It's because deep down, somehow we have some level of, we don't feel worthy enough on love. We don't think we're going to be good enough. We think we're a fraud, And it's like, so I try to really work with people to help them see, like, no, you're good. You're enough where you're at. You got to feel confident. Who do we need to be? What's the most powerful version of you? Excellent. Now that we've identified that, let's start moving forward and figuring out how we can get you moving towards the goals in the right way while still loving every second of the process. Yeah, I love this stuff. I do.
So we've brought up quite a few authors just randomly throughout the conversation. Brendan Burchard,
Yes.
I think, was first. Tony Robbins, Gary V,
Yeah.
Jocko. I'm curious what books you have to recommend. I also see for anyone who's watching the YouTube version, there are quite a few books behind.
Yeah.
Well, so
I have a bunch. I actually on my blog. I have my reading list from 2017. So I have every book I read.
Okay.
I'm drastically slacking this year, 2018.
I have been slacking lately too.
I've been slacking. I think it's fair. I think there was there's a moment to study, there's a moment to research, and then there's a moment to write the damn paper.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like I've had these moments where it's like I'm studying, learning. Okay, practice it. Like, information is not power. It's potential power. And it's like, if you're not using it, what good is it? So
I've been hoarding knowledge and skills.
So I'm going to jump in. I grabbed three books that I wanted to share. Since we were talking about Jocko and we were kind of talking about in military mindset. And so this is a book called Resilience. And I think you can see, Eric, my finger's in the way. But yeah, Eric Greitens, I believe it's how it's pronounced. He is a former Navy SEAL, a Rhodes Scholar, boxing champion, and humanitarian leader. I'm reading that from the box or from the back of it. I didn't memorize that. This is a really solid book. It's a story of it's him as a Navy SEAL kind of talking about going back and forth with a friend of his who was also a Navy SEAL that was having issues finding joy in life after coming back from war. So it's about going back and forth, but there's a lot of great self-help, motivational stuff in here. Really good book. I really recommend that one. I'm also I recommend anyone that's like, I don't like to spend a lot of money or blah, blah, blah. I buy all my books off thriftbooks.com. You buy books for like $3. It's amazing. This is another classic older one, but I love this. It's called His Needs, Her Needs. Okay. And this is by, Dr. Willard Harley. This is anyone that's read the 5 love languages. That's another really solid one, but this was kind of came out before that. This is just really good. This is it jokes about how to affair-proof your marriage. So it just talks about a lot of the different things the different ways that men and women communicate, the different ways that what men are really looking for in relationships versus what women are looking for. And just understanding that a big mistake we make is trying to love and care for people in the way that we want to be loved and cared for. But we all come from different households. We come from different upbringings. Even if it's similar, there's going to be things that don't resonate. So it just really talks about just great questions on how to really connect with your spouse. And it really gives a lot of fascinating insight into why people cheat. And what's really going on and what's happening and what are the emotions that aren't being or the needs that aren't being met. So that's really good. And then final one, and this is a big one that I always recommend to anyone. And I love this book. It's called The Grief Recovery Handbook. And this is from 1998, but there's newer versions out. But this is by Russell Friedman and John James. This is also done they have an institute here in California called the Grief Recovery Institute. And it is an amazing book for anyone that has ever lost somebody, divorce. It's great for going through divorce. If you've ever lost a parent, lost a loved one, lost a child, lost anybody. Grief is something that none of us learn about. It's really something that there's a chapter in there that talks about how awful the advice that had been passed down from generation to generation is really with grief. There's a story of the little kid, right? There's the little 5-year-old kid who has the dog and he loves this dog and he follows the dog everywhere. And then the dog dies and the kid doesn't understand it. And he's crying and he's crying and he's crying, just crying because his dog is gone. And his dad sees it and it's breaking his dad's heart. His dad, all he wants to do is take his son's pain away. So he grabs him and he holds him. He says, "Hey buddy, look, man, don't worry. I love you. We'll get you another dog." And then it hugs him. But what he said to the kid is feeling all these emotions. But my dad, who I love the most in the world, just told me not to worry. He just told me not to. So wait, am I not supposed to feel this way? Am I not supposed to feel these emotions? Because he just told me not to worry about. but and then we're just going to get another dog. We're just going to replace something that I love. It doesn't make sense, but it's confusing to a 5, 7, 8-year-old.
Right.
But but I think anyone listening can understand how a father would say that.
Meaning,
how a father would,
well. Yeah, the best.
Exactly. And so there's plenty of fish in the sea. Awesome. Cool. Thanks. That's exactly what I want to hear when I'm going through a breakup, right? Like, it's like, that's an intellectual argument. Sure. Intellectually, there's millions of people in the world I could date.
Yeah.
Emotionally, I need someone to support me right now. I'm going through a breakup. And so there's all of these things that we pass down from generation to generation, the wrong information. Mm-hmm. So this book, I can't recommend it enough to anyone that has, experienced loss in their life, or just any type of grief. It's a really excellent book. So those are my 3 picks.
Sounds like it would be a good book for anyone who knows anyone who's experienced
loss. Oh my goodness.
And you can be a friend.
Oh, totally. If you have a friend that's experiencing loss, whether it's divorce, it's grief, it does not go, like, time does not heal all wounds. Mm-hmm. Time is not the great equalizer. Like, you have to do work. You have to do the work. I hate time heals all wounds. I don't know why I did that as number 1. Nobody does that as 1. Time heals all. I hate
countries. They do.
They do, right? They do. I hate time heals all wounds, and I hate what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I hate that, because the truth is, if that were true, we would have 90-year-old people running around this country that were the strongest people in the world. And that's not true. Like, life will beat you down.
Right.
Like, I try to say it with a smile so I don't make it sound so defeated, but, like, life will beat you down if you're not doing the things to keep yourself mentally aware and mentally healthy. So those are all 3 great books. I'd love to hear if anyone ends up reading them, or if you've read those, or if anyone else has any recommendations. I'm always looking for it. So
yeah, well, I ask every guest, so there's a lot of recommendations if you look at the past or listen to future
Excellent.
ones, but I appreciate that. We talked a little bit about fear when we talked about the scariest thing you did, and you didn't mention, like, for example, moving to LA as being one of the scariest things, even though you didn't have a ton of money or a super solid plan once you got here. And I was 20.
Yeah, I was 23. I was just
judging. Like, that wasn't judgment.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know what, I was like, I'm just going for it, whatever. No.
Yeah. And one of the strategies for your move, you said, was to set a date, and that's the date it's going to happen, and you made it happen. And then with your DJing tour in Europe, you kind of put those dates out there, you gave yourself accountability and made it happen. What advice would you give maybe to your coaching clients or whoever about facing fear, like how to push past it, how to manage doing a big, scary, bold move?
Start telling people about it.
Yeah. First
thing. Start telling. Don't let it be fear that only lives inside of you. Share it with people. Tell people about it. I think that's half the fear is about being judged.
Right.
Most of the fear is coming from it not working out and us being judged and us feeling like I can't. I think that's so powerful. Mm-hmm. Telling other people, letting other people know what you want to do. You don't have to make a Facebook post if you don't want to tell the whole world. Tell the people closest to you. Tell the people. And here's the thing:
you're playing basketball with.
Yeah, right. Tell people that will support you. Right. And there's a thing we always say about, like, don't go to a dry well expecting water. If you have a family member that is negative Nancy, if you have a friend that is doom and gloom, don't tell them about your goals.
Right.
We don't need their input. I would even say, like, start pushing them out of your lives. Or if you can't push them out of your life, at least start managing your expectations of them better.
Right.
Don't go to them. Don't go to someone that's always negative, expecting them to fill you with positivity. It's not going to happen. Right. So if you're feeling fear right now, as you're listening to this, and here's the thing, if you're still listening to this, you're getting stuff out of it. So please take this advice. If you are sitting on a business plan, if you are sitting on the idea for a book, if you are sitting on a trip you want to take, if you are sitting on anything, write it down, look at it, share it with someone, tell someone about it, tell them how you're feeling about it. Hey, look, I really want to do this, but I'm afraid that I'm I don't really know where I'm going. I don't really know anyone in this industry. I don't know how to do this. I feel like I'm going to look dumb if I try this. I've had failures in the past, and I feel like this is just going to be another thing I fail at. There's something powerful when you allow other people to live life with you, when you're doing life with other people. That's number one. Tell someone else. Number two, I wanted to yell, get over it, but I don't want to say that because I don't think that that's as helpful. I think that's like a Jocko thing, or that's like a just get over it. But, understand that everything amazing is on the other side of your fear. Mm-hmm. Will Smith has this great story he tells about when he went skydiving and how he was so excited to go do it. And then he gets in the airplane, and as it starts to go up, he starts shaking and his body's trembling and he's terrified and he's scared. And as the door opens and he's terrified and the wind is whipping by him and he's scared and he's feeling it and he wants to quit and he's ready to say like, yo, I'm done. I'm not doing it. And he gets to the edge and they get ready to count, 3, 2, and then boom, they push you on 2. So you don't grab on 1, because if a lot of people will grab the things, so they push you on 2. And he said how when he's in the plane, there was no danger, very, very little danger, right? Comparatively, very little danger when he's in the plane. Yet that was at the highest level of fear. Once he's out of the plane, the fear disappears, and he just enjoys it because he's on the other side of fear. Like, right. He's actually in the most dangerous position, falling through the air without the parachute opened yet. It's the most dangerous place you can be. Mm-hmm. Yet, not the most dangerous place, but a very dangerous place.
Yes.
And boom, that's where he started getting enjoyment, because all of the greatest things are on the opposite side, on the other side of fear. Mm-hmm. You have to walk through that door, and I remember, and here's the thing, and I get it. Like, I remember dealing, I struggled for a long time with the death of my mom. It took me years to grieve properly. It took me years to really address the anger and sadness and brokenness I had from that. Mm-hmm. I used to describe it. It was like a door at the end of a hallway that I knew I needed to walk through that door, but I was terrified of what I was going to find on the other side because I knew it was going to be so painful. I didn't want to tap back into that pain of losing my mom. I didn't want to do it. It was easier to just deal with the little bit than to really try to go for it. Mm-hmm. I can say it was 1,000 times easier once I started really addressing it. I started talking about it. I started sharing about her. I used to be the type of guy that couldn't even have a conversation about my mother without bursting into tears. Mm-hmm. And now I have a relationship in my brain with my mom where I don't picture my mom dying on a bed. I picture my mom the fun times that we had. Yeah. And the good moments and the travels and the trips and the joking. And I got my mom back because I was able to go through that door mm-hmm. to do the work to get her back. I was able to do the grief work to get her back. Mm-hmm. And it was terrifying, sure, but I needed to do it. And it was like, I remember, like, I don't know, I just can't say that enough about, like, with the fear you're feeling, mm-hmm. it's real. And it's something that, like, other people have felt, and there's strength in numbers. Tell other people what you're going through. Tell other people what you want to do. Right. And then also understand that it's part of life. A lot of people have fear and guilt and shame. It's part of life. We're not meant to live in those things. We're not meant to live lives controlled by fear and guilt and grief. Right. We're meant to live lives of happiness and joy and of caring and of progress and of excitement and of joy and passion. Those are the things that life is there for us. And so that's, yeah. One day I will find a way to answer a question short.
Well, it's funny because I was just thinking, I generally also ask people at the end, is there any other advice that you would give? Are there any lessons you've learned you wish you'd learned sooner?
Sure.
is there anything that you want to share that you haven't already? And I almost was going to say, I'm not even going to ask because I feel like he's given so much value already. So first of all, don't feel bad that you're giving long answers because they're amazing, valuable.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think people will get a lot out of. But second of all, I am still going to ask you that question because who knows what else amazing you have to share. So anything else that you think people could get some value from that you'd like to share, I'd love to hear it.
You're not alone. I think that's a really big thing. Like you're not alone. You know, we've talked a lot about our own insecurities and things, and you know, the fraud mentality, like thinking I'm a fraud, thinking that I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just this kid from Detroit. What do I have to offer? You know, we all feel that, and you're not alone in that. You know, like we're not alone. You know, I had a moment. This will be my last story, I promise. And so this is a few years ago. I went to a meeting. I went to an AA meeting, and I'm probably about 6 years sober at this time. I've been sober 10 years now.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And, but I'm probably 5 or 6 years in at this moment. And I go to a meeting and there's a guy in the meeting. The guy's 31 at the time. And he's saying, you know, this is all I have. I'm wearing everything I own. I'm wearing everything I own. Like he slept on the street the night before, no home, but he can't do drinking anymore. He needs to stop trying to get into rehab. And I remember sitting there as we're talking with him after the meeting. Me and a couple of guys were talking with him, giving him advice, giving him some resources. And I remember hugging the guy, and I said, "Hey, man, look, there's people out there that love you, that want to take care of you. Please stick with it." Give him a hug. I walk back, and I'm walking to my car. As I'm walking to my car, I remember, like, I have an emergency bag of clothes in my car. Like, just, you know, old stuff, shirts, T-shirts, like socks, some old shoes, just in case I ever get somewhere and I want to play basketball or you know, I get somewhere and I want to, like, you know, there's a pool or whatever, right? So I grab some of these clothes. The guys are about my size, so I grab it and I put together a little bag of, you know, and this is just old stuff, like, you know, my shirt, some whatever. So I put together this little bag for him, and I walk back up to him and I go, "Hey, man, people love you." And I gave him this bag and I gave him a hug, and I walk back to my car. I'm walking back to my car, and I'm feeling really on fire, right? I'm feeling good. I'm feeling excited, like I did a good thing. And this feeling lasts for about 30 seconds. And I all of a sudden start, you think you're special because you gave him some old stuff, dude? Really? You gave him some old clothes and you think you did a good job? Really, Phil? Like, oh, he's homeless, bro. That's all you can do is give him some old stuff. You didn't give him any money. You didn't help him out. Like, what's wrong with you? You're sitting here feeling good about yourself. And it rocked me. Like, knowing that I had that fault-seeking brain that wanted to find a problem in anything. Right. You know, and I remember like it really messing with me. And then going home, and I told an ex-girlfriend at the time, and she goes, "Phil," my sister's name is Carol Ann, and me and her are really close. And my ex-girlfriend goes, "You know, if Carol Ann called you and told you that she had done that, what would you say?" And I was like, "Oh, I'd be really proud of her and happy for her." And she's like, "So why do you expect anything other? Like, what are you expecting out of yourself?" And it was such a moment where I have to go back to that story to remember how quickly I want to find negativity at times, and how quickly I want to beat myself up. I want to be a perfectionist, and I feel like I should be doing so much. Oh, I should be so much farther in my life. I should be doing more in my career. I have so blah, 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 but all these things. And it's like, I have to hang on to those moments and remember, like, not only is that normal, because I think we all have that at times, like, that's all that it is. It isn't, I'm not broken in my brain. There's not something wrong with me fundamentally. I'm a human. I'm a human being I can't control every little thought that goes on in my head. All I can do is be able to recognize it really quickly and see it for what it is. Right. So I think that's my big thing is, like, you're not alone. Anyone that's listening, Like, you're not alone those times that you tell yourself you're not good enough, or that you're not worthy of love, or that you're dumb, or that you're stupid, or that it's never going to work for you. We all have that. Mm-hmm. You're not alone in that. That isn't evidence. Those are thoughts. Those are not evidence. Those are not truths. Those are not things that you need to feel beat down by. Mm-hmm. They're just thoughts. You can change them. You can, and that's what I'll say. You're not alone. And if you have any questions or anything, reach out. There's so many resources that we don't utilize. So mm-hmm. I guess that would be my last thing. My last little bit is just, you're not alone. There's people out there that are willing to help. And there's people out there that experience the same things or similar things. You're not alone out there in your journey. And I hope you guys all find your mission and your passion. And let me know if there's any way I can ever help.
Yeah, so you shared your social media handle is Phillip Andrew LA everywhere. Yes. Website as well?
The website is philipandrew.co. Okay. I think they ran out of the M's. They ran out of the .com. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, and it's Phillip. It's Phillip, Andrew, Andrew. I have a blog that I try to post, Mondays and Thursdays. I also do audio versions of those blogs. I have a book that should be coming out hopefully in the next few months that is, it's called All the Reasons I Hate My 28-Year-Old Boss. So that should be... I'm excited for that. I have no idea how to publish books and how to make that all happen, but we'll find a way. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have all the answers to start.
Right.
And yeah, I would love to, if anyone is still listening to this, please, if you're still hearing this and you've stuck here this long, I really would appreciate if you send us a message, obviously like this, share it. You obviously got something out of it, so maybe somebody else will get something out of it. And we just really hope that you, continue to help, support this podcast. And I'd love to hear from you guys. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you letting me come on and talk for countless amounts of time.
I think it can be counted, but I have one more question, my final question. Sure. So if little Phil, 8 years old, has a crystal ball and can see, I think you said you're 32, all the way yes. up to 32-year-old Phil, and then you have your book coming out in the next couple months. You probably know, the foreseeable future. You have an idea of what you'll be doing. On a scale of 1 to 11, how excited would little Phil be to see the whole journey and what's ahead?
I think he's really mad that I'm not 6'5". I think that's really what it is. No, he's like, I'm not in the NBA, damn it. No, honestly, I mean, I have such a blessed life. Like I really have such a blessed life. Like I have amazing friends. I have amazing family. I love getting up and working on the things that I do. I don't even think, I don't even think the 8-year-old version of me could even like fathom. Like I'm so excited with my life, and I have a lot of ambition, and I'm not where I am yet. And I know I have a lot of other things I still want to do, right. But man, where I'm at this moment in this journey, like it's exciting. I love being able to talk to, people like yourself. Like I said, I'm very, very blessed. I'm very fortunate and very appreciative of the life that I get to live every day.
So is that an 11 or?
Yeah. We'll turn it up to 11, like Spinal Tap. I love that.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, you did a great closing, but I'm going to say the same thing. Thank you so much for taking your time while you're recovering from your surgery.
Thank you.
And taking, I guess, a little quasi downtime to just, sit and chat with me. And like I said, you've shared so much, and I'm sure that this will help a lot of people. So thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Hopefully you agree with me that that was worth that hour and almost 45 minutes of your time, because I know that I loved the whole conversation. And even if you had to maybe listen to it in little chunks, I think that you would get a lot of value and energy and hopefully a few laughs out of it as well. I also hope that you take us up on our offer, or take Phil up on his offer to reach out to him if you listen to the whole thing, or if you have anything you would like to discuss with him. He seems like an open book and someone who would just be happy to help anyone who possibly can. So please reach out to him as well. All right. Thank you so much for listening. You know, I always love it when people subscribe and share like Phil asked, as well as leave reviews in iTunes to help other people find the podcast. And I would love it if you also stay tuned for a challenge from Phil coming this Friday. All right, that is all for today. Oh, and if you needed to go to the show notes to catch his book recommendations or find the links to his website or social media, it's www.mandiem.com/episode 183. All right, we will see you Friday. Be bold and have a sparkly day. Bye-bye.